I stepped into the dimly lit barn and felt the familiar scent of hay and horse mingle in the air. The stall was tucked away in the back, and as I approached, I could see the large, dark shape lying on the straw. Copper, my darling horse, lay still, and my heart sank as I took in the sight before me. His breathing was labored, and his coat was matted with sweat. He had been suffering for days, and despite my best efforts, he seemed to be getting worse. I had spent countless hours by his side, tending to his needs and offering words of encouragement, but now I felt a sense of hopelessness wash over me. As I stepped closer, I could hear the sound of his rough breaths, and I knew that he was in pain. I reached out to stroke his mane, feeling the coarse strands against my palm. Copper was more than just a horse to me. He was a friend, a companion, a creature with a soul and an essence that touched my heart in ways that I could never fully explain. But now, as I looked at him lying there, I felt a sense of fear that threatened to overwhelm me. I knew that he was fighting for his life and that the outcome was uncertain at best. And as I sat beside him, feeling the warmth of his body against mine, I believed that our time together was limited. The diagnosis was dire. Copper had a rare and aggressive form of pneumonia, and the infection had spread throughout his body. The vet had given him a low chance of survival, but I refused to give up on him. I just couldn't. I spent every moment I could in the barn, tending to Copper's needs. I spoke to him in soft tones, soothing him with gentle touches and comforting words. But no matter what I did, his condition continued to worsen. As the days passed, my emotions dulled. I couldn't bear the thought of losing my dear friend, but watching Copper suffer was taking its toll. I felt helpless and alone, my heart breaking with every labored breath he took. As I sat there, holding his head on my knees, I knew that the end was near. Copper's breathing became more and more shallow, and I could see the life slowly draining from his eyes. I felt a deep sense of despair. I whispered words of comfort to him, telling him how much I loved him and how much he meant to me. But deep down, I knew that it was time to say goodbye. As I watched his chest rise and fall for the last time, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. It was like a piece of me was dying along with him. At that moment, I realized that Copper was more than just a horse to me. He was a friend, a partner. He had been there for me through thick and thin, and now he was gone. The tears streamed down my face as I held him one last time, knowing that I would never forget him. Copper may be gone, but his memory would live on forever in my heart. Then the fates changed their mind. The moment I saw Copper's chest rise and fall was like being given a second chance. It was like a tiny spark of hope had been reignited inside me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to feel something other than despair. A rush of emotion flooded over me, relief, joy, and disbelief all mixed together in a whirlwind of sensation. It was like a weight had been lifted, and I felt I could breathe again. I leaned in closer, watching intently as the signs of life became visible. They were almost imperceptible, but there. He was alive. I reached out and gently stroked his mane, feeling his soft fur under my fingers. It was like a lifeline, a tangible connection to this beautiful animal who had fought so hard to stay with me. At that moment, all I could feel was hope. Hope that Copper was going to be okay, and that I had to keep fighting for him. Copper's eyes fluttered open, and he looked at me with a faint glimmer of recognition. It was as if he knew that I was there, that I had been with him throughout his illness. I felt a lump form in my throat as I reached out to stroke his mane, feeling his warm breath on my hand. His eyes were clear and alert, and his expression was one of determination and resilience. It was as if he had chosen to fight, to overcome the illness that had threatened to take him from me. I gazed into his dark, soulful eyes. I felt the hope begin to build. It was as if he was telling me that he was going to fight, that he wasn't going to give up without a struggle. A sense of gratitude washed over me for the gift of his presence in my life, for the joy and love that he had brought me over the years. As I sat there watching over him, I knew that we still had a long road ahead, and he was far from being out of the woods, but at that moment, hope had returned. And with that hope came a renewed sense of purpose and determination. I was going to do everything in my power to help him get through this. The evening wore on, and Copper's condition continued to improve. His breathing became less labored, and he even managed to take a few sips of water. And as I watched him, tears streamed down my face, a mixture of relief and joy. At that moment, I knew that Copper was going to survive. He had turned a corner, and his fighting spirit had brought him through the worst of his illness. And I felt a deep sense of connection to him, a bond that went beyond words or actions. Over the next few days, Copper's condition slowly improved. He started to eat and drink more, and his breathing became less labored. And as he grew stronger, his personality started to shine through. He would whinny softly when I entered the barn and nuzzle my hand when I reached out to him. It was as if he knew that I had been there for him when he needed me most. In the months that followed, Copper continued to thrive. He grazed in the fields, galloped across the meadows, and followed me around the farm like a faithful friend. And every time I looked into his eyes, I saw a glimmer of the connection we had forged during his illness, a bond that would never be broken. Copper's recovery had taught me a valuable lesson. It had shown me that even in the darkest of moments, there is always hope, and that with love and determination, anything is possible. As I watched Copper run free in the sunshine, I knew that our friendship would endure. A shining example of the power of hope